What's going on YouTube? I'm Nick the Tutor, and in today's video we're going to be going through Module 2 of Reading and Writing for Digital SAT Practice Test 1. I'm going to answer all the questions, give you guys strategies, and give you my thoughts on how to do best on this exam. If you like this content and you want to see more, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a lot and lets me continue to make this awesome content for you guys. So let's get right into it. All right, so let's talk about number 1. So we're going to be starting off with a bunch of vocab questions here. You can see they bunch the questions together, which is helpful to know. Now, in these kind of questions, the strategy is basically to think about a word that you would put into the blank, right? So you want to predict a word and then, of course, match that to the correct answer choice. So for painter Jacob Lawrence, being blank was an important part of the artistic process because he paid close attention to all the details of his Harlem neighborhood. Lawrence's artwork captured nuances and the beauty and vitality of the black experience during the Harlem Renaissance and Great Migration. So looking for the word that completes this, so he paid close attention to the details and the nuances, so he's not going to be skeptical or confident, so it looks like he's going to be observant. That's someone who pays attention to details. So there you have it for number 1. All right, let's get into number 2. Once again, word in context. We're looking to find a word here that fits. Monica Lopez Ferreira and others at Brazil's Butantan Institute are studying the freshwater stingray species, whatever, to determine whether biological characteristics such as the ray's age and sex have blank effect on the toxicity of their venom. This is to see if the differences in these traits are associated with considerable variations in venom potency. So they want to see if it has an effect. So we have disconcerting, acceptable, substantial, and imperceptible. Let's try imperceptible, right? They want to see whether biological characteristics such as race, age, and sex have imperceptible effect on the toxicity of their venom. There's a see if differences. So it's not imperceptible, right? It's something they actually can see, and they want to see if there's differences and variations. So I'm going to go with choice D. All right, let's get into number 3. Once again, a word in context. Researchers have struggled to pinpoint specific causes for hiccups, which happen when a person's diaphragm contracts blank. However, neuroscientist Kimberly Whitehead has found that these uncontrollable contractions may play an important role helping infants regulate their breathing. So they're uncontrollable, so they're spontaneous. So I'm looking for something like spontaneous. We have involuntary, that's probably correct. So it contracts involuntarily, that would be correct, right? It contracts involuntarily, which goes along with uncontrollable, so that would be correct, choice A. All right, let's get into number 4. Once again, word in context. Critics have asserted that fine art and fashion rarely blank in a world where artists create timeless works for exhibition and designers periodically produce new styles for the public to buy. Lucenio Soshone Bannock, beadwork artist and designer Jamie Okuma challenges this view. So she challenges it. Her work can be seen in the Metropolitan Museum of Art and purchased through her online boutique. So she's challenging the view that they have to be separate by having work in a museum and in an online boutique. So critics have asserted that fine art and fashion rarely come together, right? So we have prevail, succumb, diverge. That's an opposite answer choice. That's going to be wrong. And then intersect. So they rarely intersect. She's an example of when that's not correct, right? So it's going to be D. All right, moving on to number 5. Scholarly discussions of gender in Shakespeare's comedies often celebrate the rebellion of the playwright's characters against rigid expectations blank by society. Most of the comedies end in marriage, which characters returning to their socially dictated gender roles after previously defying them. There are some notable exceptions. All right, so scholarly discussions of gender in Shakespeare's comedies often celebrate the rebellion of the playwright's characters against the rigid expectations blank by Elizabethan society. So that's like the expectations that are given to them by society. So interjected, committed, illustrated, or prescribed. Prescribed is when you give something as advice, so I think it's going to be choice D. They're prescribed by society, but then the characters actually go against that and do the opposite, right? So I'm going to go with choice D. All right, let's take a look at number 6. In studying the use of external stimuli to reduce itching sensation caused by allergic histamine response, Louise Ward and colleagues found that while harmless applications of vibration or warming can provide temporary distraction, such blank stimuli, so they're harmless applications of vibration or warming, such blank stimuli actually offer less relief than a stimulus that seems less benign. So these would be benign stimuli, right? Because then they're talking about a contrast of less benign stimuli. So these benign stimuli, we're looking for a synonym of the word benign. So So we have deceptive, no. Innocuous, if anyone knows what that means, that could be it. Novel, which is something that's new. And impractical doesn't make any sense. So even if we didn't know what innocuous meant, we would have to go with that because we eliminated the other ones. That's an important strategy, right? If you can eliminate 3 answer choices, you know which one is correct. So I'm going to go with choice B, but of course we know innocuous means something that's harmless or not harmful. So B is the correct answer. All right, let's get into number 7. The province of blank was situated on the Pacific coast, hundreds of kilometers southeast of Tenochtitlan, the capital of the Aztec Empire. Because blank's location within the empire was so blank, cacao and other trade goods produced there could reach the capital only after a long overland journey. So it was so remote, right? It was so far away from everything else, right? So looking for a word that means far away or remote. So unobtrusive, concealed, that could be a good trick answer choice, but concealed means hidden. They're just saying it's far away, right? So I'm not going to go with concealed. Approximate, and then we have peripheral. Peripheral means on the outside of something, so I'm going to go with D, peripheral, because that matches this part of the sentence here. All right, let's get into number 8. Now we have a different type of question, right? So main purpose. We're looking for the main purpose. Following text is from Charlotte Bronte, 1847 novel. Jane works as a governess at Thornfield Hall. I went on with my day's business tranquilly, so she's very calm. But ever and anon, vague suggestions kept wandering across my brain of reasons why I should quit Thornfield. And I kept involuntarily framing advertisements and pondering conjectures about new situations. So things are going across her brain. So she's very calm, but she's thinking a lot. These thoughts I did not think to check. They might germinate and bear fruit if they could. So these thoughts could be very beneficial to her. But she's thinking a lot, right? So the main purpose is that she's calm on the outside and, thinking a lot on the inside. So A, to convey the contrast between Jane's outward calmness and internal restlessness. That's probably going to be correct. I still want to check the other ones. To emphasize Jane's loyalty, no. To demonstrate that Jane finds her situation both challenging and deeply fulfilling, no, right? These are about her thoughts. To describe Jane's determination to secure employment outside, no, right? So this is definitely the best answer. I could have done with a different wording here, but that's totally fine. The answer is A. All right, number 9. This is a big one, right? Based on the text, what would author of text 2 most likely say about text 1's characterization of the discovery involving EGR? So we want to know what text 2 would say about text 1's point. This is quite a long one, so you want to take your time on this kind of question. And as you can see, I'm reading the question stem first so I can determine exactly what I need to do on any one question. So let's see text 1. Most animals can regenerate some parts of their bodies, such as skin, but when a 3-banded panther worm is cut into 3 pieces, each piece grows into a new worm. Wow, that's kind of disgusting. Researchers are investigating this feat partly to learn about humans' comparatively limited abilities to regenerate, and they're making exciting progress. An especially promising discovery is that both humans and panther worms have a gene for early growth response linked to regeneration. So this person is very positive that this gene maybe could be good for science or something like that. When Mancy whatever and her team reported that panther worms, like humans, possess a gene for EGR, it caused excitement. However, as the team pointed out, the gene likely functions very differently in humans than it does in panther worms. S has likened EGR to a switch that activates other genes involved in panther worms, but how this switch operates in humans remains unclear. So second passage is like calling into question what the first passage is concluding. It's saying it could be good, but I would maybe slow your roll a little bit, passage 1. So what would passage 2, so we always want to remember the question, right? What would passage 2 say about passage 1, right? So it is reasonable given that S and her team have identified how EGR functions in both humans and panther worms. No, it's actually saying it's overly optimistic, which choice B says it's overly optimistic given additional observations from S and her team, so that's probably correct. It is unexpected given that S and her team's findings were generally met with enthusiasm. No, is unfairly dismissive given the progress S and her team have reported. So I'm going to go with B here. I want to point one thing out. There's a lot of names that I can't pronounce on this test, and I apologize. Likes these names, or these are names that are familiar to them. What I would say is it's part of the distracting part about the SAT. They want you to sit there trying to pronounce things. Like I just skip over names. I just give the first letter and kind of keep it moving. It's important to just kind of not get distracted by things that don't help you answer the question. So that's my answer for number 9. All right, let's get into number 10. So once again, main idea. The following text is adapted from William Shakespeare's poem. The poem is addressed to a close friend as if he were physically present. Weary with toil, I hurry to my bed. The dear repose for limbs with travel tired. So this person is tired. Then begins a journey in my head, right? So thinking, to work my mind when body's work expired. For then my thoughts, far from where I abide, so far from where I live, right? Begin a zealous pilgrimage to thee. So thinking about this other person, and keep my drooping eyelids open wide. So the person's staying awake to think about someone else. What is the main idea of the text? The speaker is asleep and dreaming about traveling to see the friend. So no, they're staying awake. The speaker is planning an upcoming trip to the friend's house. No. The speaker is too fatigued to continue discussion with the friend. They're not actually talking to each other, they're just thinking about each other or thinking about this person. D, the speaker is thinking about the friend instead of immediately falling asleep. Yep, that would probably be the correct answer. They're staying awake to continue to think about this friend, so I'm going to go with choice D. All right, number 11. This is a long one, right? How does Lord Chancellor respond to the crowd? So we just have to read this, right? The following text is adapted from Lewis Carroll's 1889 satirical novel, Sylvie and Bruno. Crowd has been gathered outside a room belonging to the warden. Official reports to the Lord Chancellor. One man who was more excited than the rest flung his hat high into the air and shouted, who roar for the subwarden? Everybody roared. Whether it was for the subwarden or not did not clearly appear. Some were shouting bread, some taxes, right? So the people sound like they're complaining about something. But no one seemed to know what it was they really wanted, right? So they thought they were cheering for this guy, but they really weren't, right? All this I saw from the open window of the warden's breakfast saloon, looking across the shoulder of the Lord Chancellor. So now they're thinking about what this said. What can it all mean? He kept repeating to himself. I never heard such shouting before, at this time of the morning too, and with such unanimity. So what does unanimity mean? That means they're like shouting together. It's unanimous, right? So the people are shouting together, but they don't really know what they're shouting about, right? No one seemed to know what it was that they really wanted. So we're going to look for an answer that indicates this, right? So as a Lord Chancellor responds to the crowd, he says they're unanimous, but they don't really know what they're shouting about. So he asks the meaning of the crowd shouting, even though he claims to know what the crowd wants. I don't think he knows what the crowd wants. So the first part is correct, but the second part seems wrong. He indicates a desire to speak to the crowd, even though the crowd is asked to speak to the subordinate. He's not indicating a desire to speak to the crowd, so that is wrong. He expresses sympathy for the crowd's demands, even though the crowd shouting annoys him. I'm not sure they really mention that, sympathy or being annoyed, so I'm probably going to see D here, but let's read it anyway. He describes the crowd as being united, so that's a unanimity here, right? Even though the crowd clearly appears otherwise. So yeah, they're shouting about taxes and bread. That usually means they're kind of mad, right? So remember American history, various, English history, right? Taxes are something that cause riots and stuff like that, right? So I'm going to go with choice D. That is the correct answer. All right, let's get into number 12. Which quotation most effectively illustrates the claim? So in the novel, Cather portrays Alexandra Bergson as having a deep emotional connection to her natural surroundings. So we're looking for an answer choice that shows a deep emotional connection. She had never known before how much the country meant to her. The chirping of the insects down in the long grass had been like the sweetest music. So I think we're already looking at the right answer here. She had felt as if her heart were hiding down there somewhere with the quail and the plover and all the little wild things that crooned and buzzed in the sun. So she's really getting into it here. Under the long shaggy ridges, she felt the future stirring. So this clearly shows a strong emotional connection with the animals, the insects, nature. So she's just really into it. So I'm going to go with choice A as the correct answer. So if I was doing this, I would normally read the other answers. We should look at choice B. Talks to the men about their crops. She drove off alone. The rattle of her wagon. Learn by the mistakes. You can always tell what it caused. So none of these really relate to an emotional connection. So I'm going to stick with choice A. All right, moving on to number 13. So let's see. Which choice best describes data from the table that supports the researcher's claim? So we got to figure out their claim first. So we can see this is a chart of rate of speech and rate of information conveyed in various languages. A group of researchers working from Europe, Asia, and Oceania conducted a study to determine how quickly different Eurasian languages typically spoken in syllables per second, how much information they can convey. They found that although languages vary widely in the speed at which they are spoken, the amount of information, so they vary widely in the speed, and information language can effectively convey tends to vary much less. Thus, they claim that two languages very different spoken rates and nonetheless convey the same amount of information. So let's see if we can see that here. So we want two very different spoken rates with the same, conveying the same information. So these are kind of similar, so I'm looking here, very different rate of speech and then similar rate of information conveyed. So among the 5-line table, Thai and Hungarian have the lowest rates of speech. That's not actually even true, right? So that's going to be wrong. B, Vietnamese conveys information at approximately the same rate as Spanish, despite being spoken at a slower rate. Yeah, so that does look to be correct, so I'm going to go with choice B because it supports what they said. All right, let's take a look at number 14. Which finding from the researcher's study, if true, would most strongly support the claim? So we want a finding that supports their claim. Those psychologists have argued that experiencing awe, a sensation of reverence and wonder brought on by perceiving something grand or powerful, can enable us to feel more connected to others and thereby inspire us to act more altruistically, so do charitable things. So Kettner, along with Paul K. Pia Dietz and colleagues claims that they have found evidence for this effect in a recent study where participants were asked either to gaze up at exceptionally tall trees in a nearby grove reported to be a universally awe-inspiring experience, or stare at the exterior of nearby nondescript buildings. So they're looking at huge trees or they're looking at a random wall. After 1 minute, an experimenter deliberately spilled a box of pens nearby. So my guess here is that the people looking at the trees are going to do something charitable, like help the person out, right? So participants who had been looking at the trees helped the experimenter pick up significantly more pens than the participants who had been looking at the building. So that's probably going to be correct. Positive words. We weren't tracking the words, right? It was actions. Participants did not help the examiner pick the pens, significantly more likely to report experience awe. That's the reverse, right? We said the people who experience awe were the ones that would be more altruistic, and then participants who had been looking at the building were significantly more likely to notice experimenter drop the pens. So no, that's once again the opposite of what we're looking for, so we're going to go with choice A. All right, number 15, which choice most effectively uses data from the table to complete this statement, right? So let's see the statement. This is just about employment by sector in France and the United States. Over the past 200 years, percentage of the population employed in the agricultural sector has declined in both France and the United States, while employment in the service sector has risen. However, this transition happened at very different rates in the two countries. This can be seen most clearly by comparing the employment sector in both countries and then we're looking for the right years, right? So if we look at 1800, the numbers are pretty similar. If we look at 1900, the numbers are pretty similar. If we look at 1950, this is where it varies, right? Because you have agriculture in the U.S. went down, but agriculture is still pretty significant in France, and the United States is much more service-based. So if we need to use 1950, like that has to be one of the years compared, because then also 2012, things are very much the same, right? So the only one that mentions 1950 is choice A, so I'm going to choose that as my correct answer. All right, let's get into number 16. Which finding, if true, would most directly support the researcher's claim? So I want something that supports their claim. This is always a tough kind of question. Many archaeologists will tell you that categorizing excavated fragments of pottery by style, period, and what objects they belong to relies not only on standard criteria, but also an instinct developed over years of practice. In a recent study, however, researchers trained a deep learning computer model on thousands of images of pottery fragments and found that it could categorize them as accurately as a team of expert archaeologists. Some archaeologists have expressed concern that they might be replaced by such computer models, but the researchers claim that the outcome is highly unlikely. So we want something that says it's unlikely that the researchers will be replaced. The model is able to categorize the pottery fragments much more quickly. So that would be an argument for them being replaced. At some point, we'll all probably be replaced by computers, but we're looking for something that says they won't be. Neither the model nor archaeologists were able to accurately categorize. That's okay, right? But that says neither of them can do it, so I'm not sure that supports them not being replaced. A survey of archaeologists showed that categorizing pottery fragments limits the amount of time they can dedicate to other important tasks that only human experts can do. So that's intriguing, right? What they're saying there is that, okay, let the computer do the pottery fragments. That'll give us a lot of time to do other things that only we can do. So I think that does support it, but we got to read D. A survey of archaeologists showed that a few of them received dedicated training to how to properly. That just doesn't relate to it at all. So we're going to go with choice C. All right, let's get into number 17. So logically complete the text. We have to see what this says and try to complete a logical progression. Although military veterans make up a small proportion of the total population of the United States, they occupy a significantly higher proportion of the jobs in the civilian government. One possible explanation for this disproportionate representation that military service familiarizes people with certain organizational structures that are also reflected in civilian government's bureaucracy, and this familiarity thus has people who work in the military well suited for these kind of government jobs, right? So something that says that they will like the jobs and they'd be good at them, right? So A makes civilian government jobs especially appealing to military veterans. So it appeals to them because they're familiar with the bureaucracy of, the hierarchy of the military. So I think that's going to be correct. Alters a typical relationship between military service and subsequent. Nope. Encourages non-veterans applying. We don't care about non-veterans. I'm going to immediately eliminate that. D, increases the number of civilian government jobs that require some amount of military experience. They weren't saying that the jobs required military experience. They were saying that military people like these kind of jobs. So I'm going to go with choice A. All right, let's get into number 18. So once again, logically complete the text. These are always tough, right? I would say these are some of the harder questions. So let's get into this one. Birds of many species ingest foods containing carotenoids, pigmented molecules that are converted into feather coloration. Coloration tends to be especially saturated in male birds' feathers. And because carotenoids also confer health benefits. Deeply saturated colors generally serve to communicate what is known as an honest signal of a bird's overall fitness to potential mates. However, so we're looking at a contrast now. Ornithologist Alison J. Schultz and others have found that males of several species of the tanager genus use microstructures in their feathers to manipulate light, creating the appearance of deeper saturation without the birds necessarily having to maintain a carotenoid-rich diet. These findings suggest that, so these birds are like basically cheating birds, right? They're using this manipulation. They're manipulative birds, little freaks, right? Which choice most logically completes the text? Let's see. Individual male tanagers can engage in honest signaling without relying on carotenoid consumption. Well, here, these findings suggest something about the birds cheating the system, right? So we're looking for something along those lines. Feather microstructures may be less effective than deeply saturated feathers for signaling overall fitness. They said they were effective, right? Scientists have yet to determine why tanagers are preferred for mates with colorful appearances. That is not at all what we're talking about here. So I'm going to go with D, but let's see it anyway. A male tanager's appearance may function as a dishonest signal of the individual's overall fitness. So that would connect very well with this dishonest bird feather practice that these birds are engaging in. So I'm going to go with choice D. All right, let's get into number 19. Which choice completes the text so it conforms to the conventions of standard English? So now you can see we're switching over to a group of grammar-based questions. When writing The Other Black Girl, 2021, novelist Zakia Delia Harris drew on her own experiences working at a publishing office. The award-winning book is Harris's first novel, but her writing blank honored before. So the award-winning book is her first novel, but her writing were honored before, have been, plural, wrong. Her writing has been honored before, singular, so we're going to go with choice C. All right, let's get into number 20. So once again, conventions of standard English. The Alvarez theory, developed in 1980 by physicist Louis Walter Alvarez and his geologist son Walter Alvarez, maintained that the secondary effects of an asteroid impact caused many dinosaurs and other animals to die, and then we have out. It left unexplored the question of whether unrelated volcanic activity might have also contributed to the mass extinction. So this is a classic SAT question, right? We have a complete sentence here, right? This is a complete sentence. It left, it is a subject, right? And then we have a complete sentence here. So how can we connect two complete sentences? Our choices are a period, a semicolon, possibly a colon, more likely period, a semicolon, or a comma and a conjunction. We could see but is a conjunction. Remember the acronym for conjunctions, fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. So we need comma conjunction to separate two complete sentences. So the answer is for sure B. All right, let's get into number 21. Once again, conventions of English. In winter, the diets of Japanese macaws, also known as snow monkeys, are influenced more by food availability than by food preference. Although the monkeys prefer to eat vegetation and land-dwelling vertebrates, those food sources may become unavailable because of extensive snow and ice cover. So this is a complete sentence here. Blank the monkeys to hunt for marine animals in any streams that have not frozen over, right? So this is a little tricky, right? We don't want a full verb here, like, forces, to force, forced, right? We're looking for the ing form, forcing the monkeys to hunt for marine animals in any streams that not frozen over. So that is going to be the correct answer because it does not create a grammatical issue with having two main verbs in the sentence. So we're going to go with choice C. All right, let's get into number 22. Once again, conventions of standard English. Lucia Michel of the University of Chile observed that alkaline soils contain an insoluble form of iron that blueberry plants, not pants, cannot absorb, thus inhibiting blueberry growth. If anyone has blueberry pants, let me know in the comments below. If these plants were grown in alkaline soil alongside grasses that aid in iron solubilization, blank Michel was determined to find out. So this is a little tricky, right? Because you can't really predict exactly what's going to go there. We have to read the answer choices. So really focus on this part. It's kind of most important, right? If these plants were grown in alkaline soil alongside grasses that aid iron solubilization, could the blueberries thrive? So that should have been a question mark, so that one is wrong. The blueberries could thrive. That could be it. If these plants were grown in alkaline soil alongside grasses that aid in iron solubilization, the blueberries could thrive. That doesn't sound like it's phrased properly for a question. Could the blueberries thrive? Michelle was determined to find out. So that sounds like a question, right? Because determined to find out the answer. So I'm going to go with D over B. This is a tricky question, but I'm pretty sure that it's a D. That's what I'm going with. Let's get into number 23. In his 1963 exhibition of music, Korean-American artist Nam June showed how television images could be manipulated to express an artist's perspective. Today, Peg blank considered the first video artist. So it's a singular subject. So go with choice D is because that matches with the singular subject. All right, let's take a look at number 24. The first computerized spreadsheet, Dan Bricklin's VisitCalc, improved financial record keeping not only by providing users with an easy means of adjusting data in spreadsheets, but also by automatically updating all calculations that were dependent on these blanks to VisitCalc's release. That seems weird. Changing a paper spreadsheet often required redoing the entire sheet by hand. So I think we have a complete sentence here and a complete sentence here. So I'm going to go with choice C, the period. Automatically updating all calculations that were dependent on these adjustments prior to VisitCalc's release. Changing a paper spreadsheet often required redoing the entire sheet by hand. So yes, this is two complete sentences, so I'm going to go with choice C, which is the only full stop punctuation. All right, let's get into number 25. In order to prevent non-native fish species from moving freely between Mediterranean and Red Seas, marine biologist Bella Galil has proposed that a saline lock system be installed along the Suez Canal and Egypt's Great Bitter Lakes. The lock would increase the salinity of the lakes and blank as a natural barrier. So it would increase the salinity of the lakes, and we want to match that verb tense verb parallelism. So we go with B, create. So increase the salinity and create a natural barrier. So the correct answer is choice B. All right, let's get into number 26. Despite being cheap, versatile, and easy to produce, blank, they are made from non-renewable petroleum, and most do not biodegrade in landfills. So despite being cheap, versatile, and easy to produce. So what would be cheap, versatile, and easy to produce? This is a dangling modifier. There are two problems. That's not what's cheap. Commercial plastics, two associated problems. So I'm looking at choice D here. Despite being cheap, versatile, and easy to produce, commercial plastics have two associated problems, colon. They are made from non-renewable petroleum, and most do not biodegrade in landfills. So that is going to be the correct answer because the colon is used correctly and it connects to the phrase here. All right, let's get into number 27. Stomata, tiny pore structures in leaf that absorb gases needed for plant growth, open when guard cells surrounding each pore swell with water. In a pivotal 2007 article, Plant Cell blank showed that lipid molecules called whatever, phosphates, are responsible for signaling guard cells to open stomata, right? So this would be Plant Cell biologist Yuri Lee. Now, if you know the SAT, you know that this is a title for this person's job and not an appositive phrase, right? So if you want to know what an appositive phrase is, comment down below. I'll definitely explain it, but it is not an appositive phrase. It's just a title. So we know on the SAT when we have a title, we put no punctuation, so the correct answer is going to be C. This is an SAT strategy tip. Make sure to learn that. All right, let's get to number 28. Small flat structures called spatulae are found at the tips of the hairs on a spider's leg. Oh, hate spiders. These spatulae temporarily bond with atoms of whatever they touch. Blank, spiders are able to cling to and climb almost any surface. So we need the transition here. Right, so because of these spatulae, spiders are able to cling to almost any surface. So because of, we're not going to go with either of those. For instance, it's like an example that's not really what I'm looking for. As a result of having the spatulae, they're able to climb to any surface. So I think I'm going to go with choice D. All right, let's get into number 29. In November 1934, Amrita Shergill was living in what must have seemed as the ideal city for a young artist, Paris. She was studying firsthand the color-saturated style of France's modernist masters, beginning to make a name for herself as a painter. So Paris was great for her. Blank, Shergill longed to return to her childhood home of India. Only there, she believed, could her art truly flourish. Which choice completes the text the most logical transition? So even though Paris was perfect for her, she longed to return to India. So therefore, indeed, furthermore, still. So even though Paris was perfect, still she wanted to return to India. So I think I'm going to go with choice A, still. I think that fits the nature of these two sentences the best. She's going against what she said in the first sentence, which was perfect for her. Still, she wanted to return to India, so I'm going to go with choice A. All right, let's get into number 30. Before California's 1911 election to approve a proposition granting women the right to vote, activists across the state sold tea to promote the cause of suffrage. In San Francisco, Women's Suffrage Party sold equality teas at local fairs. So in San Francisco, they sold tea. In Los Angeles, activist Nancy Tuttle Craig, who ran one of California's largest grocery store firms, distributed votes for women tea. So they're kind of doing the same thing, right? Doing it in San Francisco, they're doing it in Los Angeles. So for example could be good, maybe not though, right? Because it's the same thing. It's not an example of the first thing. To conclude, not sure that's going to be correct. In other words, so it's not in other words because it's a different place, right? So we're going to go with C. Similarly, it's two similar things. They did it in San Francisco, doing it in Los Angeles. So I'm going to go with choice C. So now we're into the note-taking questions here. So let's get into number 31. Now for these note-taking questions, you have to read the prompt to see what they want you to do with these notes. So we have the notes. The students wants to compare the lengths of the two rail tunnels. So one is 31 miles long and one is 33 miles long. So these questions, you don't even have to read all of this. I mean, I recommend you do if you have the time. But here we're going to be looking for the only answer choice that compares the two. So I'm going to show you how easy the SAT is. We need one that compares both, right? So choice B has both. The others don't have anything about two lengths. So I'm pretty confident that without even reading all this, I'm going to go with choice B because they want us to compare the lengths. So tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that it's choice B. This is an SAT trick. This is a strategy. Make sure that you utilize stuff like this if you are running out of time. All right, let's get into number 32. So once again, a note-taking here. The student wants to provide an explanation of the example of fauna. Which choice most effectively uses relevant information from the notes? Okay, so what is fauna, right? Describe plant-animal hybrids. Fauna is a combination of the words flora and fauna. So I want to provide an explanation of fauna, right? So what is fauna? So A says it's a combination of the words flora and fauna. But that doesn't really explain what it is, just as a combination of words. What is it? It's a animal-plant hybrid, right? So B, fauna, describe this subjects of real paintings, plant-animal hybrids, right? So I think B is better than A. C doesn't describe what fauna means. And once again, this does not describe what fauna means. So B is the only answer choice that actually explains what the word fauna means. So I'm going to go with choice B. Let's get into number 33. While researching a topic, a student has taken the following notes. So here's the notes. I want to emphasize the uniqueness of Taylor's accomplishments. We're looking for an accomplishment that is unique. So she escaped slavery and fled to this island. That could be unique, right? But let's look at the rest of it. She began working for an all-black Army regiment. She published a book about the time she spent with the regiment. Her book was the only Civil War memoir to be published by a black woman. So the only one, right? So this sounds like the unique accomplishment because she's saying she was the only one, which would make it unique, right? So we're going to look for something like that. So she fled to Simmons Island. So that's probably, I mean, that's very unique to me, right? But that may not be the correct answer. She began working for an all-black Army regiment. Once again, that could be it, but I'm not sure. The book Taylor wrote about the time she spent with the regiment is still available to readers in print online. It doesn't say anything about it being unique. Choice D, Taylor was the only black woman to publish a Civil War memoir. You're the only person to do something that is extremely unique, so I'm going to go with choice D. All right, guys, that's it. We finished Digital SAT Practice Test 1, Module 2 of the English portion. Once again, thank you for watching this video. If you do have a question, make sure to throw it in the comments below. I will be answering them. Also, if you could hit that subscribe button, it helps me out a lot. If you want to watch more videos on the Digital SAT, I'm going to be answering every single question. Math is up next, so I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.